Hey everyone, if we're meeting for the first time, my name is Paul Vojchehoske and welcome to Nebraska Landlords YouTube channel, where my mission is simple: to help enhance the landlord-tenant relationship through education. Hey, do me a favor, give this video a thumbs up, hit that red subscribe button, click on the notification bell. Help me grow this channel. Help me grow it. I'd appreciate that. All right, so there are a lot of landlords faced with a decision right now. Should I sell or don't I sell? Should I hold my investment or should I get rid of it? And there are a lot of valid reasons why you would do both. But at the point that you decide to sell your property, here is the question that I get the most. Should I keep the tenant in the property or should I move them out? And both have their positives and their negatives. Now, from a real estate agent point of view, when we're determining whether or not we want to list the property and market the property, real estate agents always say, get the tenant out. Because most of the time, the tenant is hostile. They don't want to move or they have no place to move. Maybe they know they got a good deal in rent right now, and if they move somewhere, their rent's going to go up. And so they are very hostile to the process. And you have to take that into consideration when you're making that decision whether or not you want to sell the property with a tenant in there. Now, the first thing we need to determine is whether or not we want to keep the tenant in there. Now, sometimes this decision is going to be made for you. So if it's a fixed expiration lease, you're 6 months into a 1-year lease agreement, that tenant isn't going anywhere because they don't have to. They have a legal right to stay there. But if they're on a month-to-month or somehow you can negotiate some kind of termination, then obviously you can pursue the vacancy route. Now, one thing to keep into consideration, whether you're going to keep the tenant in there or move them out, this is a great time to consider what we call concessions to the tenant. It's funny how money makes people happy, and sometimes if you offer cash concessions to either type of tenant, whether you want them out or they're going to stay, it does help the process immensely, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. So first, let's talk about a vacant property. So you have a tenant in the property, and you want a vacant property to sell it. Now, first of all, check your lease. Make sure they're not on a fixed expiration. If they're on month-to-month, then all you need to do is serve them the proper 30-day notice. Now, remember, in Nebraska, you have to give that 30-day notice on or before the last day of the month if you want them out the preceding month. So I'll give you an example. If you want them out on April 30th, you're going to have to give them the proper 30-day notice on or before the 31st of March to notify them of your intent to terminate vacancy or terminate tenancy. Now, the one problem you have when you do this is once you let them know of the 30-day notice, they're not going to pay most likely April's rent. You have to be prepared for that because there's a high probability they're not going to do that. And also expect to have to evict them. Now, you may not to, but I think you have to be prepared for that financially and otherwise as you're moving through this process. Tenants just don't care for the most part when it comes to this. They're like, screw you, I'm not going to pay April and I'm going to stay as long as I can, and so you're going to have to evict me. And if that's the route that they take, then they're probably going to end up getting 2 months of free occupancy in your tenant. So you have to take that into consideration when you're making your decision. Now, one of the things you can do to offset some of that exposure is, number one, offer them some incentives. This is what I used to do. Number one, and the incentives must be in writing, and they have to sign it, and they clearly know what their expectation is. Number one, I will guarantee you that I will give you back your security deposit if the house is in decent shape. Remind them of that. Number two is I'm going to provide you a cash concession or a moving incentive, or I'll pay for the movers or whatever the case may be if, number one, you pay April's rent, and number two, you get out on time. Now, sometimes you want them out earlier than the 1 month. So another incentive is to provide them an early termination buyout, right? So if you're going to give them notice on the 15th of March to be out by April 30th, go to them and say, if you can be out by April 7th, I'm going to give you X amount of dollars when you turn in the keys in cash along with your security deposit. If you comply, that is a great incentive. And a lot of times the tenant will actually go for that. And it's a win-win for everybody. Now that includes that list of objective things they need to do. So they got to make sure all their personal property is out and those type of things. Okay. Number 2, if you're going to sell a vacant property, please make sure that you let your insurance agent know that this property is vacant. Because yes, your insurance premiums may go up temporarily, but if somebody breaks into that property while it's vacant and the insurance obviously will find out about it, they may not cover the damages. So that's a substantial risk that you're facing. So make sure you notify your insurance agent. It's all depending on your insurance policy, but talk to your insurance agent. Number 3 is make the home look lived in after the tenant moves out. That includes staging. I have known landlords that have paid stagers to come in and stage the property, and then, they talk to their relatives to have them show up. Somebody's always showing up at the property, always. All right, make it look live in. Number 4, no signs in the yards whatsoever. A sign in the yard is a magnet or a message that says, please rob me. Whether it's for rent or for sale, a vacant sign or vacant property with the for sale or for rent sign is the most dangerous thing you can do. So don't do it. If you're going to list the property for sale, there's the MLS and those type of things that people are going to know that it's for sale. Now, not having a sign in the yard isn't foolproof, but it is one measure to limit the exposure of that risk. And number 5 is, if you sell the property and it's under contract, it's a good idea to consider a pre-occupancy agreement with that buyer, okay? Most real estate agents, they cringe at the thought of post and pre-occupancies, but in this case, I do think that it is something to seriously consider. And not only that, a lot of times you can get paid for that pre-occupancy period by that prospective purchaser. So those are some things to consider if the property is vacant or you want it vacant to sell. Now let's talk about if you're going to sell an occupied property, meaning the tenant's in there. And oh, by the way, guys, I would love your thoughts. If you have some ideas, please put them down below in the comment section. Share them with your fellow landlords that are watching this video. So we have to know that if we're going to sell a property with a tenant in there, that tenant is most likely going to be hostile. We've already talked about that, so you have to prepare for that. But there are also some things that you can do to make that tenant less hostile. Sometimes it's totally unavoidable and you're just going to have to wait till the tenant's out. I get that. But here are some things you might try. Number 1 is remind them if they're on a fixed expiration lease that they're not going to have to move, that the new landlord is going to have to adhere to the terms of our original lease agreement. So many times tenants don't know that and they think that, gee, I just signed a lease 3 months ago for a year. Now I got to move. They don't realize that they don't have to move. That's number 1. Number 2, reassure them that your full amount of the security deposit and pet deposits is going to be transferred to the new owner. Again, I get calls all the time for tenants in this situation. They're like, what's going to happen to my security deposit? So they just don't know. Remember, they don't know this. Remind them and reassure them of that. All right, very, very key thing to do. Also remind them if it's a fixed expiration lease that your rent's not going to go up. That's another concern that they have. Remind them the new landlord can't raise the rents until the lease is up. However, there are some other things you can do to kind of bribe the tenant. Number 1 is to offer them some type of allowance for good behavior. And again, put all the expectations in writing without overburdening them. Okay, that's the key. Don't give them a 2-page list. Minor things like make sure that the dogs or the pets are, kenneled. Make sure that the dishes are not in the sink and the beds are made and that the toilets are clean for showings. That's the first thing. Just keep it real simple, but the key things. And if they do this, then at closing, the tenant's going to get X, Y, and Z. Offer them a moving allowance. Help them with their expense to move should they have to move. That's another consideration. Another thing that I used to do is offer them so much money per showing. And what I would do is have mini open houses when I would sell a property with a tenant in it. And so I would only maybe do 2 or 3 per week and for an hour or 2 hour period. And what I would do is, number 1, And typically it was in the evening, so I would give them a $50 gift card to their favorite restaurant, and maybe a $50 bill as a thank you for them having the house ready and vacating it with their family and their pets for a 2-hour period or a 1-hour period. That was a great technique. Again, it's funny how money makes people happy, even when people don't want to move. So that's a consideration. Use group showings or open houses. I've already discussed that. And another thing, if it's a fixed expiration lease, you can do is offer them a buyout like we talked about previously in this video. Some type of buyout. If they will get out by a certain date, you're going to give them X amount of money. Make sure all that's in writing and signatures are made, but that's another great incentive. And then last but not least, we're landlords and we have a great networking structure out there. We know other landlords. We know other property management companies. Maybe you have other vacancies. Maybe you're a property manager and you have other rentals available, etc. If they're a good tenant, help them and tell them you're going to help them find a new home. Have them, offer them other rentals that are available. Offer them a moving allowance. Offer them maybe to waive the security deposit. All of these things are just things to consider to make that showing process just a little bit better if you're going to keep the tenant in there. And I understand why you may want or need to keep that tenant in there. Again, guys, I would love to see your ideas. This is an important issue in a very fluid market. Please put your ideas and comments down below in the comment section so you can share your experiences and your ideas with others. I would appreciate that. Stay informed. Here's how. Click this video right here. Don't forget, subscribe, click the little circle to my left. Help me grow the channel and share this with somebody. See you all in the next video.